All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to PAEI's webinar panel discussion on how AI is poised to revolutionize global trade compliance. My name is Danielle Grenard, and I serve as the secretary for PAEI. Just a quick housekeeping note. We will reserve time at the end to answer questions, so feel free to enter your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom right of your screen throughout the presentation, and we will answer them at the end. We are very excited to welcome our two panelists today, Todd Smith, founder and CEO of KYG Trade, and Sid Shah, Intelligent Process Automation Leader for the International Trade Group at Intel. Welcome and thank you to our panelists. Let's begin with Todd. Todd, could you please give us an overview of what areas in which AI can be applied to trade?
Yes, hi. Thank you, Danielle. Should I share my screen, or are we going to have just a? Okay,
Feel free to.
That would be great. So I'm, as a licensed customs broker and a former consultant as a partner at the Big Four with formerly with KPMG and EY. This is a real exciting time, I think, for trade compliance professionals. I don't think it could be more exciting. I just wanted to start off with a presentation on discussing compliance from a reasonable care standpoint. And most of the viewers probably have heard of, I would imagine, reasonable care as it relates to importing within customs. And you know about informed compliance publications. You know that we're, as compliance professionals and importers, are supposed to review the regulations, the tariff schedules, customs bulletins, rulings, explanatory notes, etc., and all the informed compliance publications that are out there. And what we're seeing is that the use of AI is actually going to help us exercise and perform reasonable care much easier than we had in the past. So that's one area that I think is really exciting. But in the world of AI today, we do need to be careful about where we are seeking answers. Because there are hallucinations. I think that where we are with AI, and in particular generative AI, it's good for being creative, creating scripts, writing papers, and having fun. But as it relates to doing our jobs and which require obvious regulatory authorities, we need to be careful. We're not there yet with Chat GPT or Bard or the other models. And this is just what I'm showing on the screen. Hopefully you can see the screen. In fact, Danielle, can everybody see the screen?
We can see it, Todd. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, this is just an example of going out to Chat GPT with a prompt. What is the HTS code for women's joggers? And when this came back, I was really excited. I was reading the HTS code is 6104. It's the correct code, and it sounds authoritative, right? It sounds very confident. It says the HTS code is the correct code for women's joggers because it specifically covers girls' trousers, breeches, and shorts of synthetic fibers but then it goes on to say containing 10% or more of down. It's like, whoa. And then it says the code accurately describes the material composition, synthetic fibers, and the specific garment type, trousers, breeches, and shorts that joggers fall under. And then it goes on to say the code also includes the requirement of containing 10% or more of down. which may be relevant for certain jogger styles that have down insulation. That code has nothing to do with down. So I mean, the point is, we're not there. If you're relying on free open services, relatively free, like Chat GPT. Now, having said that, as a starting point, there are ways to put guardrails, on the use of AI and large language models and generative AI. And we can do that by having a knowledge base that contains only the most recent regulations. So instead of going out to the internet to search everything, we can point the model to a knowledge base I refer to as a corpus or a trade corpus. So this would be a knowledge base that is very specific to what you and I do day in and day out, which is trade compliance. So we can train and sort of feed into the memory of AI models only the regulations, CFR 19, for example, no other areas of the regulations, only cross rulings, for example, only informed publication documents. And then when we ask that same question, the model is only going into that knowledge base. And by doing that, we have fewer hallucinations. There's a lot of concern about within enterprises doing what I am referring to because of the concern that employees will be sending confidential information into a large model. That is a concern, but there have been advances in how we can make available knowledge bases and LLMs, again with guardrails, that don't pass that proprietary confidential information into the trillions of data that Chat GPT has been trained on. And just for an example, Microsoft Azure has a service where through an enterprise version of Chat GPT and a service that they provide, your data won't be going into the big model and remain there for training for the next user that comes along. So that's a positive thing. And as you can see on the slide, a lot of companies are utilizing that service now. And then, I just want to, say that there is concern, although I think less so today than a year ago, that AI is going to cause trade compliance professionals to lose their job. And I don't see that happening. There were lawyers who were concerned about that, and we don't see that happening. Nothing that our company is doing or that I see other companies in this space that are doing suggest, and I certainly am not suggesting that you take the answers that AI gives you for the reasons I just showed you a minute ago and run. A human still needs to review what the AI assistant is providing you, and you always need to check your sources. So we don't see that happening. I do think that what it will do and what it is doing now, and we'll show you examples of how this works in practice later in the hour, but it should help you get to answers faster. It should help you do research faster. It should help you draft reports and findings and the reasoning for how you achieved or reached a certain conclusion faster. So in that sense, it should help all of us work, as my sort of tagline says, work faster and work smarter and help you get to those answers a little bit quicker. So with that in mind, we have to ask ourselves today, and certainly in the future as the models and the bots and the automations get better, we have to ask ourselves, are we exercising reasonable care if we're not utilizing these models? And that's a question that a lot of professions in a lot of verticals are asking themselves. And this is, information that you see here in the medical profession, whereby there's a lot of discussion happening right now that if a physician actually doesn't consult an AI that's trained in the area of medicine or a specific area practice or specialty, they could miss something. And so would that result in malpractice? Questions and answers like this are going to be debated more and more as time goes on. But again, I want to remind everybody, that you can't just take what the output shows you, as convincing as it may sound, as authoritative as it may sound. You don't want to be like this guy here. So this guy is a lawyer. You may have heard about this. It happened in March of 2023. He's a trial attorney, and he needed to present his brief with legal citations and authorities. And he was watching his daughter on ChatGPT, and she was telling him some cool things. And so he decided to ask ChatGPT to write the brief with citations. ChatGPT provided 10 pages. It looked pretty good. So he submitted it without checking the citations, and all of the citations that were in his brief were completely made up. They just did not exist. And the opposing counsel called him out on it. The judge admonished him. He had to appear on public news and be interviewed as part of his his admonishment, and explain to everybody that you can't rely wholly on this stuff. So my message to all of you, like this guy, is like, don't be the next ChatGPT customs broker. So that's what we want to keep you out of trouble. Don't be going to ChatGPT or these other models and relying and running away with that. So that's what I wanted to start off with. We will show some really cool magic examples of how we can use AI in our practice today to help us exercise reasonable care and get to some really good results in the area of trade compliance, as we go through the hour today. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Todd, for that introduction. And I know it's important to share cautionary tales. We don't want to be this attorney. So let's turn it over to Sid. Sid, can you please explain what business processes can be automated by AI?
Sure, thank you. Pleasure to be here. So what we have done, or what I'm going to speak about today mainly, is what areas in trade, when it comes to systems and business processes, what we have done, and it's not specific to AI, but an overall process transformation or digital transformation per se. What we have done, let me know when you can see my screen. Okay.
We can see it. Thanks, Sid.
Okay. So our core is SAP GTS. And what we have done, or one of our ground principles, is automate at the core first. So whatever SAP or GTS can do, we want to automate that first. Now, the exterior is what you see is the different areas of what we have done using different tools, where SAP may not be the best fit. And those are some you may call process areas or business or IT capabilities, and using what tools we have done the transformation. So again, GTS at our core, and anything you can do at SAP, automate at SAP first. Now, when it comes to operations in trade or trade analysts performing different operations, we've automated a lot of that. We call it human to virtual human, and mainly to gain productivity and efficiencies. The tool that we use for that is UiPath. And think about a day in a trade analyst's life where he goes in, performs various transactions into SAP versus now a virtual human performing those transactions. Though a virtual human or a robot or a bot performing those transactions, I think as Todd mentioned, for reasonable care, we have something called as human in the loop. So human in the loop is though the virtual human or the bot performs any transaction, once it has done performing the transaction, it will show it to an actual human for another set of eyes, where a human says, okay, this looks good to me, I've reviewed, and clicks approve, submit, whatever, and then the bot finishes performing the transaction. Again, the area for human to virtual human, we've seen a lot of productivity and efficiencies gained. And again, these are scripting platforms that we have used, that is UiPath, and we have seen tremendous savings in whether it's hours or productivity or efficiencies. The next area is process orchestration. I'm sure everyone here working in trade, we deal with multiple systems. Hey, I go give me this from SAP and give me this from a PO system, and we get data from supply chain and finance and all different systems. So process orchestration, what we did is, again, in the operations area, it goes and sits on top of all your applications, whether it's an ERP legacy or any other SAP application like Ariba. Now, when Pega goes and sits on top, which means from a business user point of view, this is one-stop shop where he performs an end-to-end business process transaction in one platform. And we use Pega for that. Like I mentioned, we connect with different systems with different APIs, but it's a one view or a one stop where a business user performs an end-to-end transaction. Again, other area is exception handling. A lot of things that SAP cannot do or has basic algorithms. It could be as simple as RPL screening, restricted party screening. So we take those results and then run out in different algorithms. They could be text matching or other algorithms that we run. And those are mainly to handle those exceptions, again, outside of SAP, what SAP cannot do. So that's another area that we have seen a lot of efficiencies from an operations point of view. Yes, everyone's favorite, data science and Gen AI. So two things, one from a Gen AI point of view, again, to be very cautious, but what we have done POCs or we've tried is standardizing our operations SOPs or standard operating procedures, put them in vector databases, and then through a prompt, we can query and get answers to certain questions. And that is limited to our standard operating procedures. So for example, there's a new trade analyst that joins in and we want to train him quickly, or it has a little side help, then all these SOPs are put into vector databases. He can prompt and come up with those answers based on the training or the knowledge management content that we already have. Again, from a data science point of view, there's excuse me, machine learning algorithms in different areas we could use. Again, product classification, we can use or pull out characteristics of a product, put machine learning algorithms on them to predict HS. So again, a lot of things can be done here, but this is one area that we have done POCs or we've tried different things from a data science point of view. I think next one is also one of my favorites. We call as intelligent document processing. So think from a point of view of a supplier invoice, airway bill, bill of lading, packaging list, all these PDFs, each PDF has a process lifecycle, right? From a PO is created all the way to you do invoice, three-way invoice matching, or when the product arrives in the warehouse, you're making sure that this is the same product. So what we have done is we extract data from these PDFs, again, using AI or machine learning models, and then we use this data, you can say in JSON, XML, even CSV formats. You can perform validation, you can perform audits on these kind of data, or as simple as, hey, I want to do help or submit this to a broker, or I want to do a customs declaration. You can use that data in different formats. Now, in the background, these machine learning models, any format you throw at them, they will train, relearn, and extract the data from these PDFs, and we can use this data, like I said, in a business process, in validation, in audits, and different kind of processes. Next one we've seen is process discovery. We've done a couple of POCs, so there are many tools available in the market, but for example, to go in SAP, pull out the logs in SAP and analyze those logs and say, hey, here's the bottleneck, and here you need to improve your process, can be done by process mining. Similar is task mining, where an analyst is performing multiple tasks. A screen capture is installed on the analyst desktop, and all the screenshots are taken, and then it comes and says, hey, here's where I'm seeing number of clicks, and here's the bottleneck where you can do. Similar is communications mining. So if I'm receiving a lot of emails, it could be from brokers, we could actually use communications mining, another form of AI where you can segregate, okay, these many came from this subject, and you can analyze which domain, what was the subject, what is the operations area, and what you can actually do. So that's one of process discovery area that we looked upon. Next is upgrades and customization. So everyone using SAP or GTS, SAP goes through a lot of upgrades. So there are technical and business upgrades both. And for both of those, we have seen that either there is a business process or a whole change in the capability, or there is just minor UI changes, which is the technical upgrade. And again, to keep accommodating that, all these peripheral tools or these methodologies that I'm mentioning, whether it's using UiPath, Pega, data science, Python, intelligent document processing, these come in handy to retrofit the business process change or change in the UI. And last but not the least, I mentioned about audit from a compliance point of view. Now you can extract data from SAP, you can extract data from PDFs, you can extract data from broker portals using different automations, and then you can compare those two data and perform an audit. So these are a variety of things that we do. Some we've explored in deep, some we are still exploring, and some we've already worked upon. So with that, I will take a pause and hand it back to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sid. Very impressive, all the different applications Intel's found so far, and I'm sure there's room to grow. Todd, let's hand it back over to you. Can you please share the types of solutions that are available for workflow automation?
Yes, thank you. And what Sid is doing is fantastic. And he actually, ran through several areas that our platform can do. And I think it's great that the panel that you've organized, shows how if you have resources inside your company, like Sid, who obviously is special when it comes to trade compliance and SAP, then you could tap into those resources. What we offer is just a different approach at achieving lots of the same things Sid just mentioned at Intel. So we offer a global trade management solution as a service that has AI natively integrated into it. And so a lot of the workflows, a lot of the functions that you heard Sid speak about, you can also achieve, through a SaaS platform like the one that we have. And we're beyond sort of the lab. We're in production with some, significant enterprises. But just to give you an idea of how this works is, just like Sid was showing with SAP, we have, API integrations into SAP GTS, as well as other endpoints within the enterprise, like the product lifecycle management system, where the engineers are creating their bills of materials, they're selecting components and suppliers. You can have APIs that receive information from those types of systems. PTC Windchill is a very popular PLM system, SAP Material Master, but also other systems like order management. This could work for Oracle. The APIs can even work for other existing GTMs besides SAP GTS. The approach that we take is we create what I refer to as a product genome, which is the bill of materials and marketing information that is never in one place, could come in from both within and outside the organization. We, it's a very technical term I call munge all that disparate, federated, structured and unstructured data into this product genome. And then from there, we take that concept of a knowledge base, the trade corpus that I mentioned earlier, which is regulations, right? And we look at the regulations and we look at that product genome for a particular SKU to then essentially determine trade attributes. So HS codes, country of origin, free trade agreement qualification, etc., all within a platform using APIs in and out. So the AI automations that Sid talked about, the workflows that he spoke about, the collaboration with emails and different documentation, all happens within a platform that unifies different LLMs, different automation systems that enterprises use, like Pega, for example, to just pull it all together for the trade compliance professional. And I actually look at this kind of system almost like a payroll system, in that, a lot of big enterprises don't build their own payroll systems because regulations are changing all the time. It's extremely complex calculations that have to be made. So our approach is sort of offloading, outsourcing the regs and the updates to the regs, and all the new technologies and LLMs and automations that are going to be coming out by lots of different providers in the future. It's really to create that orchestration platform, the workflow, the collaboration for the trade compliance professional team, to really orchestrate all those different tools in one place through a single window. So I'm just going to take you through a few examples of how we're doing this. So this is an example where you can take an image of a product. You can drag and drop that image, which could come from your own internal catalog or an external catalog or your iPhone for that matter. You can drag and drop that, onto a screen as you see here, and then in the background, AI can figure out what that image is with great detail. And so this is an example where the AI saw that particular picture was a picture of a Bruno Magli men's sandal, and it described it in great detail, including, I know the text is really small here, but the AI bot was able to figure out that the upper was made from a genuine Italian leather, all right, and that it was made in Italy based on the marking that it found, on the shoe that was printed on the shoe. It was able to go out to the internet now that it knew the brand owner, and that it was a sandal, and it determined, that this most likely was a double strap sandal on the Bruno Magli website, as well as the price of the sandal, which if you're knowledgeable of footwear, you would know that not only the price, but the gender, are things that are necessary in order to classify this item. So that happened within seconds. And then what our AI is able to do, we have an automation that will then take that information and run it into a semantic search. I'm getting a message. I hope everybody can see. But yeah, do a semantic search against the cross rulings database. So this is not a free text or string search, but a semantic search looking for men's leather sandals with rubber soles. And our algorithms and AI are able to evaluate those rulings and actually flag rulings that the AI thinks are most relevant and automatically add those to a bookshelf that is specific to you in this particular product. And once you have the bookshelf of these rulings, you now can have a chat with those specific rulings. So now you're literally having a chat with only rulings that you think are most relative to your product. And we just have some canned prompts just to give you an idea, but you could type in your own question. The question I had here was summarize the rulings in my bookshelf, and there were 10 rulings, and analyze their key differences. And so it comes back and it says that the key differences in the rulings include classification of the material composition, gender classification, value thresholds. I mean, these are the things that the author and customs evaluated in rulings that had to do with classification for shoes. So it's very specific. And what's really cool about this from a trade compliance standpoint is that if you have, younger, less experienced trade compliance professionals that are coming up and are still being trained, you can see here that the AI actually is doing the training. It's asking the human questions that are relevant and needed for classification. I then went in and I asked what specific information was needed in order to classify this particular sandal. And it literally comes back and it says to determine the applicable ruling and tariff classification for this specific sandal, we need to know the percentage of the external surface area, the presence of any accessories or reinforcements, design details and value. It got that from only those rulings that were in the bookshelf. So this is not like we have a trained model where we spent years and you know, gigabytes of data training it on how to classify a sandal. No, this is AI learning what is needed to classify the sandal based on its review of rulings and regulations in real time. So this would work for any product. I'm just giving you the example for the sandal. But it looked at the rulings, and I just then asked it, okay, what is the HS code, you know, for these sandals? And it came back with 6403.9990. And it says the code applies because it classifies footwear with outer soles of rubber, plastics leather or composition leather, and uppers of leather, valued at over $2.50 a pair, $2.50 a pair. I then went into this ruling that it cited because I just wanted to make sure, right, that there weren't any hallucinations, that the AI was doing what it was supposed to do. And this was a really cool example because this one ruling actually referred to like 5 different products. So the importer was asking customs for the HS code, a ruling on the HS code for 5 different models. So the AI actually went through the one ruling and did correctly pick the right code for the sandals that had leather uppers in this case. But when I was reading the ruling, I did see that customs had pointed out that if the size of the sandal was more than 8, size 8, then it's a different number. All right. So I went back to Hey, who is our AI assistant, and I said, this is great. I said, for an avoidance of doubt, considering this ruling, what is the HS code of the size of, if the size of the sandal is greater than size 8? It came back and it said, if the size is greater than 8, then the ruling would be 99.60. All right. So, I mean, this is just really incredible stuff. Obviously, from the picture, we didn't know what the size was, but this is, again, instructive for the users who aren't, you know, really knowledgeable and have lots of experience in the nuance of classing products. Again, this is shoes, but the same, what I'm showing you here would work for any commodity. And I don't know. I get thrilled. I love my day job. All right, so I'm going to give you one more example. So here is AI assisted free trade agreement qualification. So you see the same type of screen. And just like Sid was saying earlier, we can upload, we can drag and drop, in this case, PDFs. All right, so this is unstructured information. These are PDFs. I have 4 PDFs dragged and dropped. One contains shipping documentation, bill of lading, forwarder's cargo receipt, for example. One was a PO. One was like a tech pack or a bill of material. And the other one was just information, you know, on the product. So these are different files, and our AI is in just as Sid said, was able to take information out of those PDFs. The AI can translate. So if there's non-Roman characters or non-English words in the PDFs, can translate it. But what we did here is we took all of that unstructured data and put it into a structured format, which is needed for determining whether or not a product qualifies for an FTA, right? So this would have all of the components of a product as found through that documentation, pricing information, the suppliers for those components as found in that documentation, based on the invoices and other information in that documentation, the country of origin of each of those components. And if it found an HTS code, it would populate the HS code, but if not, our system would determine the HS code of each of the components in that document set. And then we ask it to qualify that item under a free trade agreement. So it was able to look at the location of the factory based on the PO information, And it was able to look at where that product was going, again, based on the PO information. And because it now had the BOM data that was classified, it was able to figure out, okay, this could qualify for a Jordan Free Trade Agreement. The AI going into that corpus that I described a minute ago is able to look up the actual rule of origin for that product that has now been classified and present this beautiful narration that you see here that explains whether or not it qualifies. Okay, so the AI first said, and this was actually before we uploaded the BOM, it needed BOM information in order to do its job. So Kay, the AI assistant, came back and said, I was not able to find a bill of materials, and so therefore I can't go on. So then we uploaded that. And then Kay said, okay, after analyzing the bill of materials, several key findings have emerged, and it gets into the components of the originating versus non-originating. It gets into packaging materials, et cetera. I'm not going to read it line, word for word. And then it came back, and then it's after it evaluated the BOM and the rule of origin, it came back and it said that based on the analysis of the rules of origin, the finished good qualifies for the FTA. The qualification is based on RVC, so it took RVC instead of tariff shift. It says the product's RVC is 0.71, which is significantly higher than the FTA's required RVC of 35%. I mean, so there you have it. AI automated FTA qualification. Again, the AI can do this for any type of product, for any FTA in the world, based on the trade corpus, which has the rules of origin for all FTAs and all products. So just in a couple more minutes that we have here, so if you think about the fact that, okay, now we have this BOM data, which has all of the components of the finished product, where they're sourced, pricing, and the supplier information from all that unstructured data. Well, why don't we do this? Why don't we create a map of a tier-in map of the SKU based on the specific information that comes out of a BOM? And now remember, we can do this from PDFs, or we could do this from an API. When I say we, I don't mean just KYG, like I'm saying the technology is available, and Sid was showing you how he's doing it without us, obviously. So this can be done. So if you have an API that's monitoring your PLM, then we can monitor changes that are occurring to this map for the SKU as engineers or designers are changing the sourcing of components that go into that BOM. But this is an example where we mapped, the AI was able to figure out from not the API into your PLM, from a blob of PDFs, this map that shows buyer, seller, and component supplier. And what we are doing is we're taking that information, the supplier information of the components, and we are passing that to a third party that has information on party risk, entity risk, like restricted party screening, sanctions, as well as forced labor risk. And the example that we're showing here was done with a partner that we have an API into with Sayari. And that's why you see the colors of the entities. If it's black, it just means that there was no risk. Yellow means there may be some risk. And you can drill down on each of these to see the risk that comes from a third-party content provider like Sayari. It could be Measure.io. It could be Descartes. There are many providers of supplier content and risk out there. This is a real-time profile of risk of these suppliers. Then we said, okay, well, let's just say we had a detention notice and we need to provide a response to the detention notice. And so now, because we have all the underlying source documentation that's been fed in, and we have information about the risk of the suppliers and any nexus to UFLPA, and we have that tier in map at the SKU level, then let's respond to the notice we got for the detention request. And so now K can create, in this example, you're seeing here just the first part of it, but what this actually was a 15-page analysis of the entire transaction, all the parties in the transaction, all the suppliers in the transaction, and whether or not there was any forced labor risk. It starts off with an introduction that says this submission is in response to the detention notice issued by U.S. Customs and Border Protection concerning the importation of women's cashmere sweaters. And Kay produced this 16-page report and that map within about 2 minutes. Now this, I'm not, just like I said early on, I would not take this and just hand it to Customs. But this will give you a very good start. I would say that this is probably 85% where you need to be in terms of responding to a detention notice, if you have that underlying information. So these are just a few of the examples in how in real life operation today, we're using AI, we're demonstrating reasonable care, and we're able to get our job done a little bit faster, hopefully.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Todd. This is a great option for teams that aren't able to do it in-house. So back to Sid, can you please describe some use cases where AI assistance is being successfully applied?
All right. I think I already talked about some, and like Todd mentioned, I think text summarization with SOPs is mainly where we are seeing a lot of value for our trade operations. And the data science aspect that I mentioned, where you can extract data to classification, or even the document processing, there where you can extract different data, put it in whatever format you want, and use it in a business process. But those are the high levels. I think between Todd and I, we've covered a lot of broad areas. So I don't know if there's any specific questions, then we can dive into those.
Yes, we actually do have a specific question for you from a participant. And it's a multi-level question. So I'll start with the first part and then we'll go from there. So you mentioned that you have added AI to your screening processes. Can you elaborate on the logic that you've implemented and how it's done, how it's used once there is a hit?
Yeah, so these are machine learning models. We've done some, we are exploring some, and we just basically take historical data with our products and look at the product characteristics, build a machine learning model on that, which already has a HS code from the training data. And now these models are able to predict. But again, with reasonable care, the most important thing is we do not allow AI to predict everything. There is always something called as human in the loop, where we, a human actually verifies all those details. Does that answer the question?
Got it. And then does the system look at ownership and public information when screening the entity or hit?
Sorry, I didn't quite get that question again. Does this what?
Does the system look at ownership or public information when screening the entity or hit?
Well, I would let Todd answer that. Something specific to his product, but what we look at is only the address and the name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we are also experimenting with adjudicating or dispositioning soft hits from screening, and we're seeing some amazing results. Like we do believe today that we can reduce the human effort involved in dispositioning soft hits by 50%. So we are, the AI is able to evaluate beneficial ownership as well as sanctions or anything else, again, depending on access to your trade corpus. You need to be working with a list, right, or a service provider that would have that information in order for the AI to be able to evaluate and come up with a response. You have to think of AI like a human, right? So if a human doesn't have access to data to make that decision, the AI is not going to be able to. So in our approach, because we're open, extensible, we are able to have APIs into any number of list providers that would have that beneficial ownership information. So I hope that answers your question.
Excellent. Okay, we have a question for Todd. I have heard some issues with document legibility related to forced labor. Will K confirm the document legibility after it's uploaded?
Legibility, again, if a human couldn't read something that was on a document, then I don't think K is going to be able to. I will tell you this. In the example of the shoe that I showed you a minute ago, you didn't see it, but the name of the brand owner was imprinted, I guess, in the leather. And when Kay first looked at the shoe, Kay literally said, "I can see writing, in the leather strap, and I'm inferring it was Ferragamo." And then and I was looking at it and I couldn't even figure it out. And it was wrong. It was Bruno Magli. And Kate figured out it was Bruno Magli when we uploaded the subsequent picture with the writing in the heel. All right. So again, if it's not legible, no. it can't make up things, and you don't want it to. If it's not legible, you don't want the AI making up, things that are wrong.
Absolutely. Another one for Todd. How well does K integrate or utilize pictures and diagrams where it's needed for HTS classification?
Yeah, that was the example I showed.
Yep.
So we are now able, and this has become even better with the most recent announcement of ChatGPT 4.0. Its ability to identify and recognize both objects and images, two different approaches, took a significant leap. So whereas before, you could upload a shoe like to Google Lens, and Google Lens would say, "Here's a shoe, and here's other shoes that look like it." All right. Now, with what ChatGPT has come up with those capabilities, it's a men's sandal, right, with rubber sole and more than likely a genuine leather strap, and the brand owner is X, and it's getting really descriptive. So once we have that description, we then pass that into our HTS model to come up with the HTS code. That's what I was showing you a few minutes ago. Or you could pass that same product information into the ruling search if you want to do research on the rulings.
Great. And again, enter your questions in the chat. As they come up, we're happy to present them. Let's go back to Sid. Can you explain what's possible for the foreseeable future with AI in trade compliance?
I think AI is as good as the data is. I think the cleaner, the better your data, you're able to predict. Yes, there specifically with these large language models, there's a lot of hallucination also that is happening. But again, AI is, whether you use neural networks or any machine learning, deep learning, it's all inferential. So it's all as good as your data is. So the cleaner the data, the better the prediction or AI can work at. So we're not there yet. It's still, I would say, we've come a long way, but there's still a human dependency.
Absolutely.
I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. Do you have anything to add to that, Todd?
No, I would agree. Again, the way we have put guardrails on, and the prompts we have written, cause K to stop and ask a question versus making the inferential leap and coming up with a conclusion that may not be right. So in the example I showed earlier, K needed to know the size of the shoe before deciding if it was, at .60, I think, or .90, right? So you wouldn't want K just to make the assumption. You would want K to come back and say, before I can conclude, I need to know this. And if the data's not there, then it should stop until the human comes in and answers the question. The other way is, the other way to also think about it is that if the data is there, you still want a human to review to make sure that the conclusions are consistent with the data that is there. And then after time, just like I've used this analogy of getting a new puppy. When you get a new puppy and you bring the puppy home, you don't let the puppy have the run of the house. You watch and you train, and when you're confident that it's figured out where to go, well, then you can let it do its thing, right? So it's the same. I think it's the same with AI. Once you're confident that it's repeatedly performing a process correctly, consistently, then there's less human interaction. And so with some things, you'll let the AI go, and other things you're going to want to closely supervise.
Got it. Okay, for both of you, let's have Sid answer first. What are the prerequisites a company must meet before implementing AI solutions?
I think that's a very good question. First, I would look at from a little broader picture, the application of AI in what areas, right? Before embark on any journey, where can data science be used? I think that's key. Second part is, what is your goal? Let's say work optimization, efficiencies, productivity, you name it, where all AI can help. We need to define that. And once your vision and objectives are defined, where you can use AI, then the prep work starts. For example, are your processes right? Right? You don't want to automate a bad process. You should eliminate what you really don't need to do. Like, you don't need to automate certain things. Like, you don't need to do a process which doesn't add value. Once we do all these analysis, then start building capabilities where you want to apply AI. For another example, like I mentioned, or I keep saying, is data is key to AI. And what again Todd mentioned, or what we call it as human in the loop, even though if AI predicts, you want a human to verify what it has done and how well it is trained. So that's how I would go step by step in figuring out where I can apply AI, or what would be the readiness.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say, it's sort of, I'm beating the drum. The mantra is you really have to have guardrails on the knowledge base that AI is using to come up with its responses. And if you don't have that, in our profession of trade compliance, you're really going to risk making mistakes. And I know there are so many companies that are stretched thin and don't have time, and or in many cases resources, and they're just looking for quick answers. They just want an answer. They want to say they got the answer and then go. And I actually am afraid that companies will think that somebody is selling them an AI automation, a bot, and it's giving them answers, and they think it's right, and they just go. And I just, my fear is that too many people would do that and get in trouble. So again, the approach we're taking is making sure that the underlying knowledge base, the trade corpus that is providing answers, is current, up to date. It's really constrained to the jurisdiction and commodity and the type of attestation that is being provided, and that a human with knowledge, reviews the outcome, checks the citations before finalizing the attestation.
Absolutely. All right. Sid, what would be a reason not to implement a system or solutions including AI? Or where's an area where AI should not be implemented in trade?
Yeah, that's a very tricky question. Again, I would say compliance, yes, but use AI as an assistant, right? Use AI as a helper. Use AI as which assists you in assisted process. So not necessarily, I wouldn't say don't use AI at all. Like in today's world, everyone is using AI to look for efficiencies, but I think compliance or regulation, I would just say cautious and reasonable care using AI.
Great. Anything to add, Todd?
No, I agree with Sid. That's a tough question. Again, I'm a licensed broker. I did consulting for 20 years on a wide range of issues and topics, ranging from product classification, free trade agreements, post-entry reviews. And I was just kind of going through, all the different types of work that I did, and I just see so many uses if it's done right, and how it's going to help us even with things like first sale for export and post-entry audits, and we talked about restricted party screening. I mean, it is going to help us in all those areas. But the cautionary tale I think that you're hearing from Sid and myself is you can't just take the answers and run.
Yeah, I would say audit, restricted party screening. I think we've seen also a little bit in a little duty drawback validations. We've seen those areas, but again, it's just being cautious. So yeah, I would close with that.
Wonderful. How can a trade team present the need for AI tools to upper management? So how can they convince upper management that they are ready for AI implementation and that it's necessary?
You want to go first, Todd?
Okay. I was waiting for you because that was the flow, Sid. Right, so,
we can mix it up. Yeah.
We'll mix it up. We'll mix it up. Yeah. So it's always hard in our profession to get budget for technology. So we are getting asked to help with an ROI to use our platform, which is actually not expensive. I mean, to implement our type of solution is a fraction of what it would cost to implement GTS, for example. I think that the two areas that I focus on is the efficiencies that will be gained, the ability to get more done with the same number of people. So you get more compliance, more coverage, of transactions without having to add headcount, is one, because there are so many new regulations and changes that are occurring that are being asked of us as compliance professionals. And I know that a lot of managers of compliance are asking for more people because of that. And so if you can say, look, these regulations require that I do X, Y, and Z, or we acquired, or we're moving into a new jurisdiction, and I need to hire one or two more people to help. Or instead of that, we think we have a solution, a technology solution that will enable us to stay on top of these new regulations or new product entries or new jurisdiction requirements without adding headcount. So I think just operational efficiency is one area, and you could put a number on that. The other area is if you're in a setting where you are able to benefit from any type of special preference program that would reduce the duties and tariffs that you're paying, you could use the technology, and we could show an ROI by uncovering missed duty savings opportunities in the form of a free trade agreement, as we showed earlier, for example. So if we can show that you're missing free trade agreement or some other preferential program, trade program, there will be an ROI. Or there could be companies that know they're missing it, but they can't hire people to go out and get it because of the administrative work involved in supporting those programs. So identifying missed duty savings opportunities is a big one. And then the third one, if Biden just came out with more China 301 tariffs last week. A lot of companies think that just because the product ships from China, it falls into the China 301 provision. There could be an exclusion, or it could be that under the rules of origin, the product actually isn't of China origin, even if it ships from China. And again, the analysis to go into the bill of materials and figure that out is complex, takes a long time. Our AI algorithms and prompts can actually make those types of determinations too. So it's saving duty, it's identifying missed duty savings opportunities, and from an administrative standpoint, it's helping to get more done with the same headcount.
I think, Todd, you've mentioned all the points. I think efficiency, productivity, ROI, compliance, but I think the key is also how does those efficiency translate into different value-added work? So I'm going to say what you already said, but in a different flavor. Let's say I have hired a lot of operations people, or I have outsourced my operations to a vendor. Now, if my volumes keep on increasing as everyone's business is increasing, I need to hire more people. Where AI can assist that, not only you don't hire more people, but the existing people you have can do more value-added other work versus operational activities. It could be just data entering. It could be, a lot of operational activities where you can get more time savings and reuse that or reinvest that time into value-added work. We've seen ROI savings in hours, dollars, and to hire a vendor, we think, okay, it is X dollars an hour, but it is also the learning time that they need, the learning curve to get productive. We put their time to train in them. There's a churn in them. There is indirect costs for hiring them, their laptops. Like, there's just so many indirect efficiencies that we can get. And again, AI always is, I always use the word assisted in many areas, rather than just replacing a process or a human.
Yeah, I just thought of one last thing, and I just want to say, I said in the beginning that we're not going to lose our jobs because of AI.
Right.
I do think, though, if your job is full-time adjudicating or dispositioning soft hits, I do think that there's going to be a significant impact on the human doing that. And so the people who are doing that, will want to, find more value added things that they could do for the organizations when this actually starts to become a reality. It's starting. I think maybe a year from now, 2 years from now, we're going to see a lot fewer people, humans just spending time dispositioning hits.
Got it. Yes, I was going to ask about timeline. So do we think it's as soon as 2 years, or are we looking at a longer period where these solutions are going to be implemented?
It's not longer. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
again, what I'm showing you works. You'll have early adopters, and then there's that natural bell curve. You'll have early adopters that are getting it done sooner. For the masses, when will the full adoption be, where everyone who's doing restricted party screening is using AI? Yeah, I mean that could take 3 to 5 years. But in terms of the technology working and there being a benefit today, it's there.
I often relate this to an example of, as a kid, you get new gadgets. So everyone's excited about it. They don't know how to use it, but they want to use it. They're excited about it. Everyone wants AI. Everyone wants to do it. So it's each organization's their own journey to explore. Some adopt it early, some take a little time. They want to wait and experience, but everyone wants to do AI.
definitely. Do we have any additional questions from our attendees? Please add them to the chat. We'll give everyone a minute. Are there any additional parting words or topics you'd like to address, Todd and Sid?
I'll go first. Sid, yeah, I mean so again, what I'm hearing in the market is a definite excitement around the new technology that Sid said, people wanting to get their hands on it and see how it's going to help them. I do see a trend where the IT organizations of a lot of companies are more open to embracing and incorporating AI into the enterprise than a year ago. So today, I'm seeing a lot more openness to allowing the usage of AI within the enterprise than I did a year ago, and that's just going to continue. I think companies in this particular area, this field of work of trade compliance, I think I would caution you not to get locked in to a particular model or a provider's model, because there's going to be new models and new approaches coming on the market rapidly. Auto HS classification is just one example. There are many approaches and many companies now that are providing auto HS classification. So you want to pick a solution where you don't get locked in, and therefore having a solution that is open and extensible and allows you to tap the right solutions for the needs, for your needs, I think is really where you want to go, rather than getting locked into just one solution.
Yes, I would agree. However, I think there's more questions. You want to take those first before?
Yeah, perfect. So a question for Todd: is the classification model K trained to account for HTS chapter notes?
Yes, not only take into account chapter and section notes, but also the WCO explanatory notes, as well as rulings.
Great. And then one more, will KYG invest in forced labor mapping instead of using SARI?
I don't think we're going to be a content provider like SARI. And that's not really where we want to be. We are happy to have an API into anybody's forced labor mapping solution. So we have APIs into Descartes, SARI, and Measure.io. We've had discussions with Altana. So we really are sort of that forced labor map, tier-in map agnostic. Yeah, that's the answer. We're not going to develop our own database of entities like these other companies are doing. They're doing a great job. Kron is another example. But we're very happy to pull that information into the platform. Again, we're a single window into multiple content providers, and we think that that's the right approach.
Excellent. All right, Sid, do you have any parting words for us?
Not much. I would just say everyone has their own journey, and like Todd mentioned, there's always new. It's kind of hard to keep up with the news or what is happening with AI, and the new agents that are coming with AI now will replace a lot of automations that we are doing. So with the ever-changing landscape, I think we need to figure out what we really want to do. And again, like I mentioned, our strategy is start small, think big, but fail fast. So what's going wrong, so then you can build upon to that. But that would be my quote to leave. Start small, think big, fail fast.
Fantastic. Well, thank you both so much for this incredibly interesting discussion. And I'm very excited to see where AI takes us in the future.
Yeah, let's do this again next year and see.
Yeah, I know, right? There's so much is going to change.
Come true.
Exactly. I know this should be an annual topic. We'll definitely put this on the calendar for next year. We did record this session, so we will just distribute that after. And if you have any questions for the speakers afterwards, you can pass those along to PAEI and we will send them to the panelists. With that, thank you so much for attending, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.